In the silent corridors of the ancient world, a fear filled with beliefs wandered. A power unseen but felt everywhere. People in every culture used different objects and symbols as protection to keep away evil, pessimistic views, spells, or harmful spirits. These objects are called Apotropaios in Greek, meaning averting. But these objects did not originate in Greece. You can find the journey of these objects, whose first examples we see in ancient Mesopotamia around 3500 BC in this video. Enjoy watching. Lamashtu amulets, the art of protection against evil in ancient Mesopotamia. In ancient Mesopotamia, fertility, birth, and child growth were seen as blessings, but at the same time, a deep source of fear. Since infant deaths, birth complications, and childhood diseases were common, it was believed that invisible forces were behind these disasters. The most terrifying of these forces was Lamashtu. Lamashtu is depicted in Mesopotamian mythology as a monstrous spirit targeting children and pregnant women. It usually has a lion's head, snake body, and eagle talons. These amulets were usually small plaques made of clay, stone, or sometimes bronze. They were hung on house doors, cradles, and even on the clothes of pregnant women. Their purpose was clear: to scare, keep away, and create a power against Lamashtu's strength. Typically, two main figures appeared on the amulets. The first was Lamashtu herself, but here she was depicted as defeated, attacked, or fleeing. This was a symbolic way to break her power. The second was Pazuzu, the lord of the wind spirits. He looks frightening, with a dog or lion head, human body, and wings. But here he played a protective role. The Mesopotamians used Pazuzu with the logic of driving out evil with a stronger evil. In addition, protective gods and goddesses like Ninazu, Marduk, or Ishtar also appeared on the amulets. Sometimes these figures chained, chased away, or suppressed Lamashtu. These scenes were designed not only as art, but to create a ritual effect. They sent the message to the viewer that evil has been defeated. On the back sides of the amulets, or accompanying clay tablets, prayers and spell formulas to ward off Lamashtu were inscribed. These amulets were not just products of belief, but cultural responses to the trauma of society. Losing a child was a devastating experience for mothers. These objects were ways people coped with uncontrollable fear. Like the amulets used against Lamashtu in Mesopotamia, in ancient Egypt, Apotropaic figures were developed against the dangers of birth and childhood. One of the most important of these figures was the Bes amulet. This protection system, widespread between 3000 to 2000 BC, was centered around the protective god Bes. Bes's depictions were ugly but cute, sticking out his tongue, usually shown as a dwarf wearing a lion's skin, found both in homes and personal belongings. Bes was known for his power to protect families, especially pregnant women and children, from evil spirits, the evil eye, and all kinds of danger. Bes's exaggerated and frightening appearance aimed to scare away evil forces directly. This god, associated with dance, music, and joy, gained great love and popularity among the people. Another figure is the goddess Taweret. She appears with a different image than Bes: crocodile-headed, bare-bodied, hippopotamus-legged, a huge female figure with sagging breasts. Her name means great woman, and she is known as the goddess protecting fertility and birth. Taweret, created based on the image of dangerous yet protective hippos living along the Nile shores, is a frightening but motherly protective figure. She took on the duty of protecting the mother and baby from evil, illness, and supernatural threats during birth. Her image was especially placed in delivery rooms and on amulets carried by pregnant women. Bes and Taweret were used for the same purposes, though in different forms. Besides these protective figures, there were other powerful apotropaic elements used in ancient Egypt to ward off evil. The most famous of these is the Eye of Horus, Ujat symbol. According to mythology, Horus fights his uncle Set to avenge his father, Osiris. During this battle, Set plucks out Horus's eye. However, the gods heal his eye, and Horus regains sight. This event became a symbol of recovering what was lost, healing, and wholeness. Therefore, Ujat is not just a visual symbol, but a sign of protection with the power to overcome the damage caused by evil. This eye, seen in many places in ancient Egypt, was worn, hung, and depicted to protect against all kinds of physical and spiritual harm. Similarly, the Eye of Ra was also a powerful apotropaic force. This eye represented the angry aspect of the sun god, and when sent to the world, destroyed enemies, evil spirits, and contagious diseases. Thus it functioned both as a threat and a protector. While the Eye of Horus, left eye, symbolized healing and protection, the Eye of Ra, right eye, represented protection from destructive forces. Also, Bastet was a cat-headed warrior goddess. The cat figure protected homes from pests and evil. The scarab, the sacred dung beetle symbol in ancient Egypt, was not just an animal figure, but one of the strongest symbols of rebirth, the return of the sun, and life after death. One of ancient Egypt's most iconic symbols, the Ankh, or life cross, was used extensively from temple walls to jewelry, from burial goods to everyday life. As an apotropaic object, it symbolized life, immortality, and protection, keeping away evil spirits and the evil eye, protecting both the living and the dead. This amulet, carried in the hands of gods or worn around the neck, served as a strong shield against physical and spiritual threats. The universality of the Ankh reflected Egypt's deep belief in the cycle of life and death, while its apotropaic power connected it to protective traditions like the evil eye beads in ancient Greece. This simple but effective symbol has remained an enduring legacy, celebrating life and warding off evil in Egyptian culture. After Egypt, between 800 to 600 BC, the first apotropaic symbols appeared in ancient Greece, notably the Gorgoneion, that is, the severed head of Medusa. Known for its petrifying gaze, this figure was usually placed at temple gates, on battle armors, and on house walls. Looking into her eyes meant forcing evil to confront itself directly. Medusa's frightening expression was used to repel the darkness within the enemy. Another figure used for the same purpose was grotesque masks, exaggerated facial expressions, twisted mouths, and scary faces. These masks were commonly found in theaters, but also part of daily life. It was believed evil spirits liked aesthetics and order. Ugliness drove them away. But protection was not limited to frightening. The snake figure was a deeper symbol. The snake seen on walls, mosaics, or statue bases was called Agathos Daimon, good spirit. It was called as an invisible entity protecting the house's prosperity, fertility, and peace. Wine or incense offered to it was an invitation against fear and for abundance. The snake was not only the protector of the home, but also a symbol of life and healing. This belief was embodied in the staff of the god Asclepius, a simple rod with a single snake wrapped around it. Even today, this symbol used by health institutions represents renewal, health, and rebirth from death through the snake's skin-shedding cycle. However, over time it was confused with another snake symbol, the Kerykeion, or the staff of Hermes, with two snakes. Hermes was the only god who could cross the boundary between the living and the dead. Therefore, his staff represented not only communication, but also the balance, protection, and passage between death and life. Although it caused confusion medically, The double snake symbol had a spiritual balance function in ancient Greece. Another powerful protector was the phallus symbols. Yes, these figures shaped like male genitalia may seem inappropriate today, but in ancient Greece, they were sacred symbols of fertility, life force, and protection. Phallus statues placed in streets drove away evil eyes and honored the fertility god Priapus. After ancient Greece, between 500 BC and 400 AD, we start to see symbols widely in Roman culture. The symbols in Rome were nourished both by the Etruscans who migrated from Anatolia to Italy and by Greek influences but gained a different interpretation with their own cultural features. The fascinum, phallus figure, seen in ancient Greece appears as Rome's most common apotropaic symbol, but this figure represented not only sexuality but also life force, fertility, and protective power. At the same time, priests held rituals with a sacred phallus symbol called fascinus to disperse bad energy. The phallus, with its striking form, served the function of confusing evil intent, distracting so that the cursed gaze would be ineffective. Romans also symbolized hand gestures for protection. Mano Fico, the fist squeezed between thumb and index finger, served the same function as the phallus. It was a gesture talisman against evil eyes. Mano cornuta, known as the horned hand, was especially used against magic and the evil eye. This sign is still known in Italy today as a charm to ward off bad luck. The Medusa figure, originating from Greece, maintained its popularity in Rome. Especially the Medusa head engraved on chest armor or mosaics represented the idea of eye for an eye against evil. Romans saw divine energy pushing back evil in Medusa's expression. Therefore, it was frequently used in temples and public buildings. Snake figures. Romans saw the snake as both a protector and a sacred entity. In homes, especially in the inner courtyard called atrium, snake frescoes and mosaics were placed. This snake symbolized the genius loci of that house, meaning its protective spirit. In some regions, Agatha Daemon, known as the Good Spirit, was respected as a spiritual power, protecting the household's prosperity, health, and peace. Every Roman house had a Lararium, a small altar dedicated to ancestors and protective spirits. This area usually featured depictions of the house protectors Lares, or the gods of food and abundance, Penates, along with snake figures. Daily offerings and incense were made at the Lararium. These rituals were based on the belief of creating a visible protection line against invisible evil forces. Like in Greece, grotesque masks in Rome also functioned to break spells and drive away evil spirits. These masks were used outside of theater decorations as well, especially found on tombstones, house entrances, and gardens. According to belief, ugliness was unbearably disgusting to evil spirits. Thus, masks became a kind of mystical deterrent. In medieval Europe, between 400 to 1500 AD, apotropaic symbols left deep traces under the heavy shadow of religion, both in popular beliefs and church architecture. In this period, where pagan traditions blended with Christianity, protective marks were engraved on stone walls, house doors, and the edges of sacred books. One of the most common examples was the pentagram. Its 5 points symbolize Christ's 5 holy wounds in Christianity. But its origin was much older. In the Middle Ages, it was carved especially on door thresholds, chimneys, and tombstones to keep evil out. Another powerful symbol was the cross, but not the ornate crosses seen in churches, rather simple protective crosses mostly carved on walls or wood. According to belief, these marks prevented the devil from entering the place. In church architecture, grotesque figures and gargoyle statues appear. Actually, gargoyles were made to drain rainwater from roofs. but their twisted faces and creature forms showing teeth also served to scare away evil spirits. These figures were like shields against imaginary creatures that were not mentioned in the Bible but lived in the fears of the people. There were also more secret and personal protection methods. Witch marks, mostly overlapping circles, sun wheels, or Marian marks, letters symbolizing the name of the Virgin Mary, were seen on house beams and granary doors. These symbols were especially made to break the influence of witches and black magic. Medieval Europeans believed that unseen threats were always at the door. Therefore, there was always a trace to keep evil away everywhere. From the 8th century AD onward, nomadic Turkic communities ruling Central Asia developed a strong Apotropaic culture to protect themselves against harsh natural conditions and uncertain dangers. These beliefs, nourished by shamanist roots, blended with Islam and left a rich heritage extending to Anatolia. One of the most common Apotropaic symbols was the eye motif. Painted on yurts' doors, cradles, horse saddles, and children's clothes, this motif was the direct ancestor of today's evil eye bead. This symbol, working on the principle of the eye sees the eye, noticed pessimistic gazes and repelled them. This practice was widely used both among nomadic Turks and settled communities like the Uyghurs, Karluks, and Khazars in Central Asia. Another important apotropaic element was talismans. Shamans and religious leaders wrote mysterious symbols, animal figures, and sacred texts on pieces of leather, stone, or paper, and placed them in cradles, personal belongings, or under soldiers' armor. These amulets acted as shields against spiritual and physical dangers. Animal figures were also strong symbols in the Apotropaic culture. Depictions of horses, wolves, eagles, and dragons were used both as power indicators and to scare away evil spirits. Especially wolf head motifs appeared on warrior shields, horse headgear, and flags. The Tu, or horse tail banner, was not only a symbol of political authority, but also of sacred protection. The Tus placed around the Turkish army created a sacred area that prevented enemy forces and evil spirits from entering. Coming to today, one of the most common Apotropaic symbols still used is the evil eye bead, a tradition dating back thousands of years to Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. People believed that jealous looks and the evil eye would bring disaster. The blue glass bead symbolizes the eye and is believed to have the power to reflect back evil. It spread in the Ottoman period to Anatolia, Greece, and the Middle East. Today, it is still used on house doors, vehicles, and jewelry from Turkey to the Greek islands and from Lebanon to the Mediterranean coasts for the same purpose. Red thread or ribbon. The power of color has been known since ancient times. Red, representing life energy and blood, was considered strong against evil. In Anatolia, red threads were tied to newborns' cradles, on wrists in Jewish Kabbalah, and around children's necks in Latin America. The aim was to break the effect of malicious gazes and the evil eye. This practice continues today in Turkey, Mexico, Israel, and the Balkans with the same belief. Cross necklace. Since the early Christian periods, it symbolizes the sacrifice of Christ and God's protection. In the Middle Ages, the sign of the cross was used to drive away the devil. From the 1500s onward, it was worn as a holy shield in the Catholic and Orthodox worlds. Today, it is still worn with faith and for protection by Christian communities in Europe, America, Africa, and Asia. Hamsa, Fatima's hand, a common symbol in the Middle East and North Africa. The figure depicted with an open hand is seen as a spiritual barrier that stops evil. In Jewish culture, it is called Miriam's hand, and in Muslim societies, Fatima's hand. From the Middle Ages to today, it is placed in homes, jewelry, and vehicles to repel the evil eye and bad energy. It is especially widespread today in Morocco, Tunisia, Israel, Turkey, and Spain. Horseshoe. In Europe, iron was believed to protect against evil spirits. The horseshoe, with its iron material and crescent shape, symbolizes both fertility and protection. It spread from 17th century England to America and from the Ottoman Empire to the Balkans. It is still hung above doors to bring luck and protect the house from evil. Saint medals. In Catholic tradition, certain saints, especially Saint Benedict, are believed to have the power to drive away evil spirits. They bear Latin prayers and sacred symbols. Since the 17th century, they have been carried by soldiers, travelers, and the sick for protection. Today, they are still used in Catholic dense regions like Italy, Spain, the Philippines, and Mexico. So, which apotropaic symbol do you use? The evil eye bead, Hamsa, or horseshoe? Or do you have totems? I'm waiting for your comments.